Hello everybody, I'm Lorenzo Marchessi and I'm here right at the beginning of this video we're about to watch to remind you to subscribe to my channel. It's very helpful if you do, and also please tell your friends, your family members, and share it if you can. Love to hear your comments and feedback, but just want to make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Geek Authority Show. I'm your host, Lorenzo Marchessi, and this is the show where, yes, I interview very special people, people of all talents from all places, actors, writers, directors, producers, cosplayers, all kinds of people in front of and behind the camera. Today, I have a wonderful addition to my list of behind-the-scenes kind of thing. His name is Eugene Hutchins, and he is the managing director of one of the oldest theaters in the Los Angeles area, and that is Theater West. Welcome, Eugene. I so appreciate you doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So you're with Theater West, and you yourself have this varied background of obviously wonderful talents that you do. Let's get to Theater West, and let's start with you. Are you, number one, are you from here, native LAan? And when did you get the theater bug? When did that happen?
Well, yes, I'm actually a native Angelino. I was, born in Los Angeles, raised mostly in this northeastern part of the San Fernando Valley. And to me, how I kind of got into this was kind of interesting because I've always was drawn to the arts, but what really connected me actually was when I was about 7 years old. I was figure skating, and I really enjoyed figure skating. And one day there was auditions being held at the end of the rink for a commercial, and they most of the kids who they were on there could not get on their skates. They were like wobbling over. But here's me just strolling around because I was getting pretty good at the time. I was in competitions. I was winning competitions, and I was excited that one of the casting people saw my father and asked me, would your son like to audition for a commercial? It was for Puff's facial tissue. And, and I said, well, let's ask him. And, so they said, I said, sure, why not? I skated around and thought nothing of it. But then later that night, like something like 2 a.m, it was like really late at night. I wasn't up. They said, we'd like your son to be in this commercial. And it's like, and this was at Pickwick in Burbank, Toluca Lake area. And so I did this commercial, on ice.
How old were you? How old?
I was about 7, 8 years old at the time, and I had to get flippers because I had, my teeth were, going, and that's like false teeth. So you have to look like you have a full set of teeth there, and it was a lot of fun. And slowly but surely, I began to start studying acting and dancing and singing and all that stuff, and I loved it. And I enjoyed
through high school and college?
through junior high and high school, and it became my life. It became what I enjoyed doing, and that's really was what led me to wanting to pursue a career in the arts, what showbiz or what have you, because it was just something that I was so passionate about that I couldn't see my life not being involved in it in some way. So I ended up going to UCLA, and I actually got my BA in dance from UCLA, and then I ended up moving to New York City, where I lived there for about almost 7 years. Pursuing a career in theater, and actually also and I'm doing a lot in opera, amazingly enough.
Wow. So you go to school and you get this BA, you said in dance, right?
Right. Right.
That does that mean you know literally all forms of dance? Is that what that?
Well, a degree in dance means that most universities and colleges, the mode of dance that is primarily taught is modern dance. Now, there's different styles and techniques of modern dance. I mean, there's those that know Martha Graham, Merce Cunningham, uh, Lamone, release technique, et cetera, et cetera. And you study a lot of that, but there's also ballet as well. Ballet is important to have a good classical foundation, and I studied that too. But I was always into all forms of dance, so I love dance. I love tap dancing. I mean, I was a big fan of Fred Astaire,
Well,
and
who,
exactly. So I
or
love
Gene Kelly? How about Gene Kelly?
and Gene Kelly too. So but I studied all forms of dance, from flamenco to South Indian Bharatanatyam, West African, and because I found that the more versatile you are, the more different things, which I was fascinated by. Exactly, ballroom dancing,
Ballroom dancing.
swing. Exactly. Was made me more rich in terms of when I was a choreographer, because I could draw from all these different styles and techniques.
Okay, so I got a couple questions to think about.
Sure.
So you're doing um, you went to New York, you said, for almost 7 years. Now, did you choreograph there? Or were you in a lot of companies, or what happened?
Well, when I went to New York, my first gig, which I, I graduated from UCLA, and I wanted to move to New York, and that was my goal. And I didn't have anything set up, but I had a little summer job teaching, at the local parks and recreation. But I was constantly sending out. There was this publication called Art Search, and which is still produced today by the Theater Communications Group. And so Art Search had listings for internships and positions, and I found I reached out to the Pearl Theater Company, um, and they were looking for an assistant for their artistic director. So I sent in my letter resume, I think by fax back then. This is the predates email,
What's
and
a fax? What's a fax? Is
exactly,
that like
yeah.
VHS?
I know. For some people to Google that up, but so I interviewed with Shepard Sobel, and he offered me the job, and so that was my way to moving to New York. So I was his assistant for a season, and that was a wonderful, extraordinary experience, because I was able to move to New York, get to know what New York City was like, but also fulfill that dream, which was because the people who I admired the most, the people who I love and think are incredible, they all had some connection to New York City. What was in the water that made them so amazing? And so the Pearl Theater Company, which unfortunately is no longer with us, but they were a classical theater company. So they did Shakespeare and Moliere, and that season I remember it very vividly, because we did Misalliance by George Bernard Shaw. We did Cymbeline by Shakespeare, which was a huge hit. The New York Times gave it a wonderful review. And then the next play we did was The Barber of Seville, the play version by Beaumarchais, and that was didn't do as well. And then we did Venice Preserved by Thomas Otway, which was a restoration comedy, interestingly enough. So it was fascinating to see this whole process of working with equity, working with a group of actors. These were professional, and I got to really be steeped into the theater scene and the art scene, and it was amazing.
You brought up a good point there. For those who don't know, Equity is the theatrical union for actors on stage. There's different unions for different genre. I don't want to say genres, different mediums of the arts. So is it notably different, say, actors and dancers that work in the Equity shows? Because I'm sure you've worked on both, right? Non-equity and
Right.
equity.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different, I mean, well, equities, because it doesn't cover actors, so even musical theater dancers as well, and also stage managers. So it also covers them too. What was particularly great, I think, with pro theater, which I always thought, because one of the things that was always notable is that, finding a place to rehearse and space was always at a premium, and was particularly unique with this wonderful work at the Pro Theater is that oftentimes I was able to use the space between gigs.
Wow.
And so that's how I began to develop my career as a choreographer. Was originally rehearsing at the theater when they were dark.
So,
and
so
just move things out.
how many shows would you say you have choreographed over your career?
Over my career, I have, well,
Give me a number.
it's hard to imagine, but actually, I'll tell you, I know that when I calculated, it shows that I have either directed or choreographed are about 30 productions of all different types and styles. And, about another 30 that I've stage managed. It's,
Cool. And this is New York. And then what point
well,
did you move to LA?
well, the thing is, I mean, it started in New York. That's where I began my career. And that's where I, cut my teeth, and began assisting a lot of other directors and all that stuff, and so working also in arts administration too. But then I decided I got a gig working for New York City Opera, and that was really remarkable because I began to find that some of the things that I was drawn to artistically were being done in opera, and with some of the amazing directors there, and like Stephen Wadsworth and Donald Byrd and other director choreographers and what they were doing, Mark Morris. And so I was working, a lot more in opera. So I decided that I wanted to go back to school to learn more about opera and work on my languages because opera is mostly in Italian, French, and German. And I decided to go back to school. I went to got my master's at Florida State University. So after was in New York for then, I decided went to Tallahassee, got my master's. Then in 2004, moved back to Los Angeles because this is where my mom lives. And she's was getting along in years, and I wanted to make sure that I could be near her. So if I had to take care of
Oh, oh, okay.
her.
What a cool son. Okay, so you're now let's take it to LA. So now I know for a fact there's not a lot of opera in LA. There's not a lot of dancing going on. I mean, unless you count Dances with the Stars. I mean, are you a fan of the show? Be honest.
I enjoy the show.
You don't think it's a little jaded?
Well, like anything else, what I appreciate is that any way to get more, of those dance forms out to the public to appreciate. So they're not just Fred and Ginger back in the 30s, but they seem more contemporary. And that to me is pretty awesome.
That's
Whether
true. Yeah,
regardless of
and kids and kids might be out there watching and thinking, maybe this is something I want to try. And
Sure.
you know, that
Exactly.
that that 30 seconds of that dance may inspire the next, Rita Moreno. Who
Yeah,
knows?
exactly.
Okay, so how did you? I mean, this is fairly recently. You just told me that you got involved with Theater West. How did you hear about this? I guess it's one of, if not one of the oldest theaters in Los Angeles.
Well, Theater West, it's the funny thing is when I was growing up in Los Angeles, studying, at dance and theater and act. I was familiar with who Theater West was, and I would actually drive. My parents, when they would take me to lessons, would often drive by the theater because there was so much stuff going on in Ventura, Crane Boulevard, Studio City, that whole area.
Universal
And
Studios.
yeah, exactly, Universal Studios. And so I was fascinated, that these some of these greats were still working there, like Betty Garrett. If you think about Gene Kelly on the town, I mean, and other shows that she was the ingenue with Frank Sinatra. It's hard. It's like, that it's like, that's amazing to me. And so recognizing that connection, that legacy, and recognizing that film and television are different animals to theater, but actors still need a place to exercise their muscles, just like an athlete, just like artists, dancers. They need that continual working environment, otherwise they get rusty. And so Theater West was a pioneer in really bringing actors together to start developing these workshops to try out new material, but also an opportunity for them to actually go back on stage. And so that long history always attracted me to wanting to work for Theater West because I appreciate that history and that legacy and to continue that moving forward. And so even today, there are workshops, it's a membership company, so actors have to audition, directors, writers, technicians have to submit materials in order to be accepted by the membership. There are different ways of how you present your materials, and then
Are there dues involved for everybody?
you have to pay certain dues per month. But with that allows you to be able to have access to, well, I think a wonderful network, but also these opportunities to have these workshops and begin to also allow you as a creative figure. I mean, a lot of the playwrights, they have new material, new one person shows they want to test out and experiment and workshop, because you need that process of performing and getting that feedback both from your professionals, your peers, of course, but also those, but just an audience as well, to see how this works. And you, of course, as you know, in film and TV, unless you're taping like a sitcom before a live studio audience, you don't always get that immediate response. And it's not always a laughter you want, but sometimes it's the tears, or it's the
And sometimes the jokes don't hit their mark, and you don't realize it until you have an audience. You're like, wait a minute, I thought that was funny, and then they're like,
or or someone sees things that you never saw before, which
right.
I always, to me, that's, I think, where it could be that much more helpful, is because when you're so stuck in the uh, the process, that you get that tunnel vision.
Right. Wow. So what happened? Did you see an ad in the paper, or did someone reach out to you
Right.
and say, hey,
Yeah, so exactly. So I saw a listing as I was looking for something that I can, I mean, right now, I said we're in challenging times. And for us, in the field where people are being laid off and all sorts of different things. And I had actually applied to Theater West earlier, about 3 years ago, which I didn't get the position at that time. But then I saw this, and so I resubmitted my letter and resume. I was called in on a virtual Zoom interview, and there you go. And here I am.
so what's your title? What do you do there?
I'm the managing director. So basically, I manage the kind of the day-to-day administrative operations for the theater. So that includes everything to making sure that we are, you know, our bills are being paid, that the process to get our work done is done effectively and efficiently, from box office, how we promote, how we raise money, all those different things are within my oversight, to make sure that we can continue to do these wonderful workshops, that the actors and playwrights and performers have what they need to make sure the theater is running smoothly, making sure that I'm engaging with all the different artistic board, report to them, making sure to let them know where we're at financially, where we need to raise
So
more money.
you're kind of like the bottom line guy, so that each little department of the theater as a whole has what they need, gets what they want in terms of if it's within budget, and then make sure it kind of moves smoothly, right?
Right, exactly. And that's, to me, I see that as my responsibility. And as told them earlier, I mean, the biggest thing you can do for me is hold me accountable, and I want them to, because, to make sure that I am doing what they need to achieve. Now, they're in this transition because their former managing director left in June. So they've been doing a lot of this themselves. So it's, as you can see within the committee, there's a lot of responsibility in this, and now they're ready to transition that back to person. But again, I'm also one person.
Right.
So it's recognizing what we can do together, and making sure we have a clear pathway, so that we're all in this together, and making sure we get past COVID, in a stronger position, so we can continue to do our live performances, continue to do our virtual programming that they're beginning to have plans for in the winter, in February and March and April, so that our audiences will come back, which I know they will, to see the great work that we're doing.
Right. And as a reviewer, of course, I've reviewed for the last probably 10 years or so a lot of their shows. And one of my favorite things that Theater West does, of course, is the storybook theater. Oh my God. And I've interviewed several people that are involved with it. And I got to tell you, it's not just for kids. You will go to these shows with, as a parent, or, as a cousin or whatever, as an adult, and you're going to get so much enjoyment out of the comedy and, of course, the original music. And so I'm sure that's a big area for you, the
I
children.
love that, and that's, to me, particularly because I have in January my son will be 2 years old. And, it's to me, sharing my passion, my love, not necessarily that he'll go into acting or showbiz or what have you, just to be exposed to, because I think it teaches so much no matter what you end up doing in life. And even, pre-COVID, when he was not even one, I was already taking him to the Bob Baker marionettes, Bob Barker marionettes, excuse me. And he was enjoying that. Although it's fascinating, he was enjoyed more by how the audience responded to what he saw on stage than the actual thing. But I thought that was also just wonderful to have that experience. On the
I think more parents should take them to live theater,
yeah.
um, and musical theater too. Because
Oh yes.
I mean, if the kids are coming out humming songs, it's like, theater bug. Um, okay, you had sent me some. Let's look at some of these images you sent me. I've got lots of questions. Um, this is cool. Are you singing, giving a speech? What are you doing?
Well, this was actually a wonderful event. Pre-COVID, just basically before we had to close down, in February, I had led an effort that led to this event. So, um, in my community where I live in Altadena, which is just north of Pasadena. And I had learned when I had moved into my house with my wife that the person who lived at this house was a Tuskegee Airman. His name was Oliver Goodall.
He was a
And I
what?
thought a Tuskegee Airman.
Oh,
A
airman, airman. Okay.
Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen were actually the first African American pilots, but they were segregated from the other units during World War II. And so, but what was unique about Mr. Goodall is he participated in something called the Freeman Field Mutiny. And this was a civil rights action in which he and his fellow officers were trying to integrate in a peaceful way what was the segregated officers' quarters by going in one by one to the officer quarters because they were officers too, and they refused to just go to the um, people of color section. And so this, and they were then forced to sign a paper in
Okay.
which they had to say that you must follow this order, which they refused. But this action that has happened in about 1944, 45 is what led eventually to Harry Truman, signing the executive order integrating the armed forces. So
Okay. So what are you doing
Oliver
here?
Goodall was part of it.
What are you
And
doing?
so this event was to honor him by placing a plaque and creating a monument to honor this, him and his remarkable achievements then, but also as a community leader in Altadena for more than 50 years. And so it was a great event. Congresswoman Judy Chu attended, and as well for the full event, it was an amazing day.
Wow. I'm loving this. I'm feeling a little bit of West Side Story here. I don't know.
Well, this so as a choreographer, and to me, this was in New York City, and this was actually a photo that I did that was outside on the roof of the apartment building I was living in, um, uh, and it was this was a part of a dance I had created. This was this year. This was 1999, and I had gotten my first commission to create my full evening of dance choreography for me. And so I, was taking a bunch of pictures of the different pieces I was going to be performing and creating for the dance concert.
You have a
And
good photographer there too.
yeah, she was a wonderful photographer. Her name is Julie Limburger. And I was very fortunate to be able to, get her for this. And so, yes, this is me in mid-flight.
Love it. All right. What do we have here?
Well, as we spoke about, one of the things I also do, I was a teaching artist for many years, teaching dance and drama. And one of the places I taught in Pasadena between gigs was at Theater 360. And they asked me to also direct and choreograph a production of Disney's Cinderella. But knowing, I told them, well, I'll do it, but I don't want to do it the traditional Disney way. So this was me, with my cast of youngsters from 5 to 12 years old, and I reset the Disney's Cinderella in the 1920s, and kind of reworked the script. They're using all those 1920s characters, and so this was during one of our rehearsals.
Is this the Rodgers and Hammerstein version?
No, this is actually the Disney version. So
So
Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, yeah, the
okay,
Disney version, the animated thing that they did. They've Disney has realized they can make money now, even making stage versions of their classic animation.
wow. All right. What's going on here?
So yeah, here I am. Again, I'm a director choreographer, although I do choreography also for other directors as well. But this was a rehearsal for the Yeoman of the Guard, and this was here in Sierra Madre. So this was here in Los Angeles at the Sierra Madre Playhouse. We rehearsed at one of the community rooms of a church, and so I'm teaching them the choreography to "I Have a Song to Sing," oh, which was also a popular hit back in the 1960s too. But it comes from the Yeoman of the Guard, and we'll see probably an excerpt from that later.
Okay.
And this was also this was me on stage giving some notes to my cast. I'd also done again. I don't mind changing the time and place of and resetting existing works. And this is a production of Gilbert and Sullivan's Ruddigore, which I reset from the 1830s to the 1950s. And so basically it was fun with all those. It was like a B movie, Roger Corman B movie. So we had a lot of archetypes of
I
that time.
love the hairdos, the glasses.
Exactly.
All right. This is colorful.
So that's a yeah, where the wind blows. So this is kind of in the big, what I call what they used to refer to in old Broadway lore as your 10 o'clock number to make sure that the audience was still awake. So this was a big number, and basically, where the wind blows, is basically all the different. The whole idea of Ruddigore is that it's so absurd, but it's very funny in its absurdity, in that basically, the protagonist has to create a bad deed each day, or an evil deed rather, each day. Otherwise, he will die in flames that day.
That's
Well,
a motivator.
exactly. In the second act, we find that he's taken on this mantle, but the guy is too nerdy to do anything bad. So, his uncle says, "You got to do something because the worst thing he's done is, oh, I cheated on my income taxes." So all the past manifestations of the ghosts of the past are trying to convince him to do these bad deeds.
Okay. Ooh, what do we got here?
And so this was here me at Cortina's High School for the Arts down in downtown, and I was giving a talk to the high school students about professions and careers in theater, dance, music, and the arts, showbiz.
Wow. Okay, and that's it. I, I think you're sitting in front of a mirror, and the mirror is reflecting your audience, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's important to me. I think that any way we can engage our youth, particularly those who want to go into the profession with open eyes, I love doing that. So this was one of
You,
those.
you mentioned you have one son, right? Or you,
Yes.
just one kid, or do you have more?
Yes, just one son, yes.
Okay, for now. Wink, wink. As your wife goes, no. Oh, I like this. Here's some more youth.
Yeah, so when I 2012, I decided to transition from my artistic career and work mostly more into arts administration and management. And so I accepted a position at Musique, which is a professional musical organization in Pasadena. And one of the things that I did, I was their community engagement and institutional giving manager. And so I helped to produce some of their free concerts that they did. And so these are my volunteers that I recruited to help out on that night.
Very cool. So you've done quite a bit as far as working with the youth and speaking to them about what you're doing. I'm curious, at Theater West, besides your managing director, are you going to be involved with any of the arts projects with the kids or anything, or you just going to stick
Well,
to?
I hope so, but not necessarily in an artistic way, but just to make sure that, what we're trying to do is achieve what our goals are. Making
Right.
sure that our educational programs are aligned with the visual and performing arts standards, Common Core. Also, I think, making sure that they're properly supported and funded, that the storybook theater is still as exciting and wonderful and relevant today. I think that there's a lot of great opportunities there. So I'm hoping, lend just to support, just to provide my input to make sure that it's also reflective of the diverse community of Los Angeles too. To make sure that, the folks that we see, represent people who they are. The stories that they're hearing are not the same stories, but are stories that reflect our greater heritage and culture.
Right. And the other thing I remember, it's been a while since I've seen a storybook theater show, but I remember they used to bus students in from different schools and stuff. That would be your job, right? You'd make sure the.
Right, exactly, helping to organize that, and that's why it's very important that the performances reflect that, so that that, because particularly now in these challenging times where budgets are very tight, every educator, every school wants to make sure that because theater for itself is of course vital and important, but also does it relate to other subjects, other subject matter like history, or like I mean, that's what's so wonderful about Hamilton is that probably before the musical came out, nobody would know who Hamilton is, not even that he's on the $10 bill. So we want to make sure that those type of things are thought about too, and just articulate that type of thing as well.
How do you feel about that, Hamilton, musically? Because it really took the modern day, literally 20th, 21st century music and put it into a Broadway style production. Do you, a lot of people are mixed about the whole, do I want to sit through rap, blah, blah, blah. But I tell you, I didn't lose a beat. I didn't lose a note. I didn't lose, it was surprisingly entertaining. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big hip hop rap person, but
No, yeah,
Hamilton blew me away. What's
no,
your opinion?
absolutely. No, I love that. To me, it's no different. You got to remember that Broadway music was the popular music of the day back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. When Gershwin was writing um, it changed somewhat in the 50s and 60s as rock and roll and all that stuff came in there. And so we kind of separated them out. And of course, Stephen Sondheim is on a plane, even outside all that. But so it's to
What about
me,
Mr. Lloyd Webber?
and amazingly enough, they're born on the same day, but they couldn't be two different people. And that's fine. And Andrew Lloyd Webber was part of that. That's why the 1970s and even Sondheim's musical style, what was remarkable, could just be as contemporary even then. In like songs from Company, were had that thing. But Little Night Music, his big hit. Who knew that would have become a big hit in 1973? So it's remarkable. So when I think things like Hamilton or even the jukebox musicals, regardless of your question regarding quality or if it's appropriate or not, to me, the idea that popular musical stylings and genres and styles can be integrated as amazingly as Lin Manuel Miranda does with Hamilton. Somebody else did that in the Heights, which is as well, is remarkable, and it's a way for us to make our stories that much more relevant.
All right. And for people with kids, he did the score for Moana. And I love that score. One of the
Exactly.
Disney films. Amazing. Okay. Um, let's look at tell me a little bit about this guy. Do you know this guy?
Yeah, this is my website.
Okay. What will we find here?
Well, this website, in today's world, you have to be connected, in cyberspace. So this is how people can get to know who I am and what I can offer their organizations. It gives you my background. So if you go, this is my homepage, but if you go to the leadership, section there, it tells you a little bit about, where I've been, what I'm doing. I have testimonials from colleagues who were so kind enough to, both, write things about me, but also things that it tells you about my background and experience. I mean, so that picture down there is, was that concert I was, the launchers helped at. So there you go.
Wow.
And You go to the artist place. It just tells you again about my career, and you see, different pictures of my different productions I've staged over the years. And as you can see, these are all the different companies that I've worked with. And as I said, I've worked throughout the United States, not just in New York and Los Angeles, but anywhere from Houston to Wichita to Syracuse, to the
Right.
Hamptons. Yeah. And here's Theater West. And this is our new website that was just recently launched. But you can see how wonderful and rich, this family of artists who have, come together, from stars like Bo Bridges there.
Yeah, I've
you
seen,
know,
I've seen, I've seen Bo Bridges. I've seen Lee Merriweather there. This is before my time, but I understand Carol O'Connor's done shows there. Um,
and I think there's a lot of, what's wonderful is that a lot of the actors who choose to work at Theater West, a lot of them are actually truly are still working actors and professionals. They may not be the big people who make it their profession. And that's something I always like to make sure that people recognize, is that if you see the opportunity to expand their talents, is that, they're working actors, but oftentimes in TV and film, you're already cast based on your type.
right.
Oh, you're the tough guy, so that's the roles you'll be given or whatnot. But you may want to try to be, do
That's another
Rapunzel
thing,
Falls.
right? That's another thing about Hamilton, diversity in the roles in
Yeah.
terms of gender as well as race. It broke a lot of boundaries there. Actually, it broke a lot of rules.
Right,
Uh,
exactly. And it's something that I've always said throughout my career, and why I ended up working more behind the scenes, because that way I wasn't as restricted in terms of what I could work on. But I think that oftentimes we see things just through our prism of experience. We have our own biases that, whether they're positive or negative, impact and influence our choices. And sometimes, as casting directors, they're seeing just those different things. And so the opportunity, for you to see, again, as Alexander Hamilton, is just so refreshing to recognize that it's about the story, not necessarily about the visible representation of the person.
right. All right. What Altadena Arts?
Yeah, so this is a new organization that I started this year, which is dedicated to elevating Charles White, who was one of the great African American artists of the 20th century. He was one of the just extraordinarily talented, in terms, and his work through paintings, drawings, and murals, um, lithographs, just really elevated the Black and African American experience in a wonderful way. And so he lived in Altadena as well as Chicago, and there's New York again. And here, but he was also a great teacher, and he taught at the Otis College of Art and Design for I think almost 15 years. And there's a new generations of artists who studied under Charles White. And so what we will be doing is public art here in the community, but including placing a monument and plaque at Charles White Park, which was named for Charles White here in Altadena. And in fact, only one of two parks are named for an artist in the United States. And so we're doing that, as well as arts education, which again is a passion of mine, at the schools that will bring his stories. So folks can see, oh, wow, there are different artists who look like me and their stories as well in the curriculum. And also we're doing an arts festival at the park too. And the background you see behind me, this is Charles White Park.
Okay. You mean on your Zoom, right?
Right, exactly. Behind me in the Zoom. And these are folks who are serving on my advisory board. So it's a very exciting undertaking that I'm hoping to continue on as I continue to work with Theater West as well.
Wow. Quite a few people helping out there, huh?
Yep. Well, it takes a village.
It does. And who's at the top of the list? There he is. Okay. Now, you sent me this link. Tell us a little bit about this.
Okay, so this is an excerpt from a production that I directed and choreographed back in 2011. This is Michelle Holmes, who was a former member of Theater West, but one of my favorite actresses and performers who I love working with. And I had the opportunity to do this. And this is a production from Gilbert Sullivan's Yeoman of the Guard. And this is
when our gallant lord foes made our merry land their own, and the Saxons from the conqueror were slain. And his name arose, his canopy of stone, a sentinel unliving and undying.
Where is this at? What's theater?
this was actually at the Clark Center for the Performing Arts, which was in Arroyo Grande along the Central Coast of California. And this was actually a co-production between Opera San Luis Obispo and Sierra Madre Playhouse. So it started here at the Sierra Madre Playhouse, and then we did it again with the full orchestra at the Clark Center.
Okay. Wow. And this is on your YouTube channel? Where's this? Yep.
Yes, this is on my YouTube channel.
Okay. All right. You have sent me another clip. What do we got here? Oh. What's this?
So this is KCBS was very kind enough to actually cover the event for all the Tuskegee Airmen I spoke about, and so this was a nice short story that they put out there about the monument unveiling.
Airman and the impact that he had on his community.
Lieutenant Oliver Goodall used to live at this house on Harriet Street, where a monument is unveiled today in his honor. 2020 marks the 10-year anniversary of his passing. The World War II officer made a powerful impact in his community of Altadena and in Pasadena. He also helped elevate the dignity and civil rights of African Americans across the country. In conjunction with Black History Month, community members came together to pay tribute to his life and to his legacy.
Yeah, see, these type of things, to me, this is what the things I hope to do also with Theater West, is that we begin to engage with our community, that our work, that what we're doing there will just be as powerful. And this excerpt here is from a production I did with Opera North. This is at Lebanon, New Hampshire, which is at the Lebanon Opera House.
Okay, this is New Hampshire? Really?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the Bergman dance from A Midsummer Night's Dream. Guess you can't really hear the orchestra here with it, but it was kind of set in a 1960s fantasy world, and I thought it was kind of fun.
Wow. Okay, that was live theater in, I believe you said New Hampshire, correct?
Right, exactly.
So
I travel around.
now, you're based in Los Angeles right now. Will you do that kind of thing when the theater's open, or your home is gonna be Theater West?
Well, yeah, my home is Theater West. I mean, after basically about 2012 is when I kind of transitioned away from my artistic career. And so I'm now focused here in Los Angeles, because when I was working, as a director, choreographer, what have you, I was always on the road, because again, I did a lot of opera. So as I didn't work much with LA opera at all, but I would work around the country. So that's where New Hampshire was calling. They need a choreographer, a director, stage manager. I would be there for 3 or 4 weeks, to put up the show.
Very cool. Okay, so for people watching, say youngsters or people who want a career change and say, I want to do this kind of thing, what advice would you give them to say if they wanted to be a choreographer or a director or get involved behind the scenes with theater? What would you tell somebody post-pandemic?
Well, I think, like, for anyone who's really interested in this, just do it. begin to talk to your friends about what this is about, see if they can help you. If you know actors, reach out to theaters, volunteer, begin to learn the process of it, read, go to your Google searches are fine, but don't be afraid to actually crack open a book to understand, or audio book, and begin to really know as much as you can. To me, although it's good to be a specialist and an expert in one thing. Don't be afraid to use your intellectual curiosity to learn all sorts of different things, because they can all be used to advance your career in showbiz, theater, performing arts. Because to me, the more you know, the more marketable you can be.
Right. And I also believe a couple of people I've interviewed talked about um, the one thing, say you volunteer or do something that's not your focus or your main interest, may lead you into doing exactly what you want to do because of the connections you made, the knowledge you have, what you bring to the table, kind of thing. Um,
And that's why I said connect with your friends, connect with all sorts of different people that you may know. They may a friend of a friend may know someone. And the great thing about social media is that you can see that because it's right there for you. And if something pops up on a friend's feed that you notice that interests you, follow up. And I think that's the key thing, is that don't think just once it's going to be fine. No, follow through. It takes
yeah,
persistence more than
that's
anything
great
else
advice.
to really,
That's great advice. So,
make it.
so in closing, do you think can you give us any kind of what do you call it? Spoilers about what's coming for Theater West in 2021? Is there anything we can look forward
There's
to?
nothing. Oh no, there's a lot of wonderful things that are coming up. None that I can share at this time because we're still in the planning stage on this. But I will say that there's some very exciting and really, thought-provoking and wonderful things that will be happening. And I'm sure I will let you know. You'll be on, among my first people once we have something. So okay.
Yes, absolutely. Because I miss going to the theater. I miss it. And I've seen music reviews there. I've seen musicals. I've seen dramas and comedies and the children's theater. It's just so much there to offer. Um, do you find it post pandemic? Do you think what's your opinion on people coming back into the theater? Do you think?
Oh, I think that there's going to be a hunger for some people coming back. It's you can't. To me, you can't replicate virtually the experience of being in person and seeing someone 10 feet in front of you, you know, dancing or singing or acting. That kind of connection is just not the same, and that is why. I mean, after all this Zoom fatigue continues, people are going to want to go out. People are going to want to, connect with each other. And the best way you can do that is through the arts, to seeing a play, going to a gallery, and seeing that work again, that moment. And you can only do that in person. That's why I always say that that's the one thing that robots will not be ever able to replicate is,
Wow.
the actual humanity that comes from being on stage,
Ha- ha-
being in
has Theater
art.
West has Theater West done any zooming?
They've begun to do some virtual stuff. Please go to their website. One of the things about Storybook, they have for a limited time, I believe, some of their past
No?
children's programming there. So it's definitely the plays that they've done. So definitely worth checking out.
Cool. All right, Eugene. I want to thank you so much for doing this show with me. And I'll tell you what. Again, I learned so much about your theater in general. We got a little touch of choreography today too, which is kind of fun. And hopefully, you inspired some young little dancers out there to take it seriously, and pursue it.
Yeah,
And
thank you,
eventually,
Lorenzo, for having me. Thank you. It was an honor. I
well,
appreciate it. You were wonderful.
well, thank you. And you came highly recommended. And you always get nervous with new people, and I'm like, oh my God, you're a cash machine of information. So we're now rich with knowledge. But thank you again. And just in case all of you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I think it's somewhere around here. And then, of course, click that little bell. It'll actually send you an email when I drop videos, so you can watch them whenever you have the time or at your convenience. But please check out my other shows. I have a Talk About show where we talk about things, movies, TV shows. One in particular show ran 3 episodes where we talked about the closing of Disneyland and California Adventure, how much we miss something when it's no longer here. I also have Mysterious Chamber of Collectibles where I pull out all my stuff in my closet under my bed that I've been collecting for so many years. And you get to see what things were made and kind of nostalgic. I also have the Unboxing Geek Authority where the new stuff that comes out is shipped to me directly. When I open it up, I see it, you see it, we all see it for the first time. So it's really, really great. And another show that I do is called Reviews, Opinions, and Commentary, where I kind of tell you what I think and feel about mostly good, couple bad things about what's out there in terms of the entertainment market or mediums that are available. So once again, Eugene, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it so much. This was so much fun for me. Hopefully it was fun for you. And we will talk soon, I'm sure. And let's say bye to everybody. Thanks for watching.
But thank you.
Bye-bye.